Born ready.
Welcome to the Road Ahead podcast with Procycle Mobile. I am your host, Joshua Foster. I'm joined today at Bikebook headquarters in Brighton by Paddy from Hunt Bike Wheels and Jake from Bikebook. Paddy, Jake, thanks for coming on.
Hi there. Thank you very much for having us.
Even though this is the second time today.
Yeah, thank you.
And being my very first guests for the second time.
Right, doubling up.
Yeah, doubling up. I want to talk today about the evolution of performance wheels, which I think you'll be quite well placed to talk about, Paddy.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Yeah,
you know, that's,
that would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So can you just give us a bit of background? Who are you? How do we know each other? Where do you work? And why are you best placed to talk about performance wheels?
I'm Paddy. I'm the senior design engineer at Hunt Bike Wheels. So I do all of our CFD and wind tunnel testing, and so like some of our on the road testing and physical we're a small team of sort of 3 engineers, and so it's everyone has to wear a couple of hats. But so I've been at Hunt for 4.5 years, where I got a job there in customer service after me and Josh graduated from Sussex University in 2020, and so there weren't many jobs going in 2020 with the world closed down, and so got a job in customer service, and then slowly badgered them for a bit. It's like I'd love to run some of the testing, come and help out, go and do like little bits of the side with the engineering, and so over sort of a year or so moved over entirely onto the engineering side of the business, and so for the last 3.5 years I've been spending 40 hours a week thinking about how to make round wheels slightly faster, that's my background, and so I don't know if I'm uniquely placed to talk about performance wheels, but I've definitely
certainly in this room you are.
In this, I'd like to hope so. You've got the qualifications, Josh, but we'll see. I
don't do much to the round wheels anymore.
No, that's fair. That's good.
So Hunt are obviously quite new to the market compared to some of the older players. You've got some proper old production houses that have been going since the invention of the quick release skewer.
Yeah.
Literally.
So
what makes Hunt unique compared to Campag, compared to Envy, compared to Mika, compared to... I'm not going to list anymore because of... Yeah.
Keep going. Well, so it's an interesting one. So, I mean, fundamentally, I like our initial... I think Hunt has evolved with the years as well. So, I mean, our initial proposition was based around going and sourcing like the very best components from reputable manufacturers in like predominantly Taiwan, and doing that effectively is very similar to what a lot of the traditional manufacturers are doing. You listed a couple there that manufacture outside of the Far East, but still like the majority of bicycle product is manufactured in Taiwan and going towards more China and Vietnam now, but it's predominantly in Taiwan, and so then offering that sort of effectively like a more cost-effective solution to get a performance bicycle wheel, but then with sort of our great customer service and our warranty, and then Hunt has moved forward from there. And so like initially it was 2 brothers, one who had a background in like the cycle retailer sort of side, worked at a lot of distributors, and the other one he was a consultant with a sort of a very high powered degree from Cambridge, and he's a super clever guy. But they sort of started it and then have slowly brought in people like me to come and do wind tunnel testing, and so now sort of like pretty much all of our carbon wheels are sort of unique shapes to us that we've designed, and so sort of becoming to a point where there's fundamentally like our performance. We put out white papers. We I think in terms of performance there is nothing between us and the more established brands. I mean, it's a point where I think in many cases we've like shown through our data that we believe that we produce a superior product, right? And that's sort of what we sell ourselves on. And then through a direct to consumer model, it means that there's like just less fat on the bone there, and that there are less levels. Like we build the wheels, so we have our own factory that builds 100% Hunt bike wheels full time, and Taiwan, and that is like that we then directly sell those wheels to our customers, right? There's nothing else going on in that supply chain, and so that efficiency obviously allows us to provide wheels at a lower cost, but are still providing the same performance. Obviously I'm deeply biased in that whole thing, but that's like loosely the proposition for those who don't know. Yeah.
So not all the engineering's run out of Partridge Green in Sussex, is it? You've got a little bit. You were mentioning before we started recording about being off to Germany.
Well, so I mean, all of our engineers, that's our office, but so we do take our testing on the road. So we obviously we started with Louisa Grappone, who was from Campag and Fulcrum, and had the chance to design like limitless wheels, which were like the first genuinely wide disc brake wheels on the market. And so using the fact that you didn't have to have a brake track in place allowed us to go for I think they're 34.5mm wide wheel on the 48 limitless, which in sort of 2019 when it came out was like 5mm wider than anything on the market. And so she's Italian, and so has had tested before with GST, and so which is an old Airbus facility on Lake Constance in South Germany. So that is where we go to do all of our testing, which means it's a long time in a van, but it's a very good wind tunnel, and they were really the pioneers of testing bikes in the wind tunnel. And it's a really good sized wind tunnel for testing a bike, and so you have your blockage ratios are about right for testing a bike only. And so it's a trip that we sort of on a personal side, I would love to get to a slightly closer tunnel, but it is just such a good place to do testing, and it's the same place that Tormag and all of the German mags test, and so a really reputable brand. And Ernst, who runs it, is a genuine expert. It's basically, he's been working at the same tunnel since like the mid-80s, and so he just knows every intricacy and has seen everything. And so the value of that expertise is something that we like lean on heavily, and so we always try and take the opinion of experts in their field to provide the best product.
So you've touched a little bit on engineering, but people out there aren't going to know the intricacies to the the granular CFD level and the actual physics of it. Can you give us like an explanation of why engineering in wheels matters so much, why the aerodynamics matter so much, why the design matters so much, and can you walk us a little bit through about what your design process is?
So I mean, Hunt, we have a lot of product, and so fundamentally like our mission statement as a brand is to serve the rider. And so we always try to fill a product niche and have a target rider or use case in mind. And so the process slightly changes depending on what that use case is. That if it's an aero wind tunnel, an aero like road race wheel, obviously it requires wind tunnel like development, and whereas if it's a more impact focused sort of gravity wheel, we've just released our new proven trail wheel, where we've sort of worked very hard on the layout methods that we're using and some like co-molded sections to get sort of stronger rims. And so it does slightly depend on the project, but fundamentally we always try and we're basically everyone is a bike rider, and so we are just sort of trying to design around like our use cases and the use cases that we see out there in our athletes and our riders and our customers.
So Jake's being slightly attacked by his microphone.
Losing battle.
So a lot of the marketing, you touched on designing wheels for purpose. A lot of the marketing you see out there, you've got stuff like, this will save you X amount of watts at this speed. As I said, rider focused, specific to the purpose. But what are the misconceptions that tot up about wheel design? You get lots of things saying, don't buy these wheels, they'll only save you 2 watts and you have to be doing 45k an hour to actually matter.
And this is the thing. So fundamentally, aerodynamics is the primary force that you're fighting against when you're on your bicycle, right? And so no matter how fast or far you are going, if you are more aerodynamic, like you will get there quicker. And actually, the slower you're moving, the more time you will save over that course, just because you have the longer you spend out there, the more effect these like small percentage gains get you. And I mean, fundamentally, like it's again down to that use case that it's, if you care about how fast what your finish time is in any event of any distance, that there is like ticking off these marginal gains does matter, right? And that's the sort of thing that you can get slightly. There is a certain maybe slightly, sort of retro grouch view maybe that it's sort of, it just doesn't matter, just go ride your bike, go and have fun. And like absolutely, like that is, I think, fundamentally a great thing to do. And if that is what you want to do, like, one, we have product for it, and you don't need to necessarily spend like £1,000 plus on a set of aero bike wheels. But if you want speed, like it's a bit of a cliche, but it's sort of they really, like, a carbon wheel set really transforms the way your bike rides, the way it feels, and there is like tangible, measurable performance benefits to be had, and and they just look sick too, obviously.
Jake, you mentioned in episode 1 about doing a bit of time trialing. So have you ever chucked in a set of carbon wheels? Do you feel the difference? Do you notice the difference?
Yeah, if you got full disc at the back, you fly compared to just having 50 mil on both sides. I think I think we spoke about it earlier, but I had the opportunity to ride a Pro Specialized once on a time trial, which had full zip disc. I think it's 808 on the front, and it's just completely different. Obviously, if it's windy, it's a bit scary, but performance over wind.
Yeah.
The noise as well when they come past you. You're on a road bike on the time trial, gurning every pedal stroke. What is that?
Sound like a fighter jet.
Yeah. It's freaking scary.
No,
and then they just come past you and they bloody soar.
Yeah.
So clearly, engineering behind the wheels does matter, and it does make a difference. Even at a smaller level, you're going to be less tired, less fatigued. It's like buying a carbon bike. You buy a carbon bike over an aluminium bike, and you've got a softer ride. And you're going to feel more comfortable.
Well, exactly, and there's like lots of nuance there, right? And so I think that's where fundamentally, like on the time trial scene, that there are people who have been like very competitive on 2014 Giant Trinities for like over a decade now.
Yeah.
And that bike has just been superseded in the World Tour, and so that your modern disc brake wheel design is like, now we've got to a stage where it is outright faster than the old rim brake stuff. But like the initial like thing it allowed was like wider tires, more comfort, and like a more like holistic approach. And so you can be very aerodynamically efficient by just keeping everything narrow, everything skinny.
Yeah.
But fundamentally you lose out on the comfort, the traction, and then the like stability of that profile. And that's the thing that you're sort of looking at like some 808s from a couple of years ago, like were like narrow, skinny in sales. And then if you're sort of looking at something like our 73 like aerodynamicist wheels that we developed to be like the fastest wheel around a Kona course, like they are a much more bulbous shape, and so they are sailing much more efficiently at higher wind yaws, and so you are managing to like get the same aero performance while also being more stable. And I know that's also like something that when we sponsored Quebec at Assos, that's what like Victor Campenaerts was like always pushing for. It's like, I want to be in the aero position for as long as possible.
Yeah.
And that's where sort of there's much more holistic systems engineering approach, I think, to a disc brake wheel set now, that it's not purely the drag figure is small in the tunnel, but the drag figure like has to be small in the tunnel, but then also it has to then allow you to keep your like system CDA low, and like it's a much wider look at performance than just purely that sort of one drag figure. I think is something that is like very easy to communicate to customers, and so something I think historically like we have probably leaned too much on in the past, and like it's always a joke around the new SL7 bike, SL8 or whatever, new Specialized should just pedal itself at this point, right? You've saved like hours over a 40k TT versus previous models, right? And it's sort of it's starting to ring a bit hollow, but actually yeah, it's like small marginal gains and marginal improvements and quality of life bits that actually, yeah.
So these are the engineering intents behind trends of wider rims, tubeless setups, just better ride feel, better stability, same performance, if not better.
Yeah, well, exactly. That it's sort of, it's, yeah, making things that are easiest to live with. Because as most bike racers, that's a yeah, on the like topic of our previous conversation, like it's difficult and expensive to sort of maintain bikes, and so if you can have a setup that is more versatile, it doesn't need you to have like a whole bevy of front wheels for your TT bike, say, for like when it's windy conditions. If you have something that you feel confident in and you can just buy once and you know it has performance across a wider operating window, that's obviously really positive. And so yeah, it's a bit of a mix, but again, yeah, coming down, and then obviously like technology is always improving, and so that's that you see. I mean, like the scope wheels that came out recently, like as a engineering output, like an incredibly impressive product. So it's like looks like
So from an engineering perspective, you're having to design wheels for different purposes.
Yeah.
And you talked about versatility, you talked about gearing it towards the customer. Let's talk about gravel bikes for a second.
Okay.
Because I know you like gravel bikes and gravel cycling.
Yeah.
Jake, have you got a gravel bike?
Don't have a gravel bike.
Don't have a gravel bike?
Yeah.
Need
it, yeah.
So Paddy, I'm pretty sure, has got a gravel bike. You got your old Focus.
I've actually, this is my recent purchase. So we've got a warehouse in Dresden, and we share that space with Sauer Bikes.
Okay.
So they're a small German, predominantly steel, like manufacturer. And so I went for got myself a purple haze. So it's heavy as sin, but it's got a yoked rear end, so I can fit I was riding around in the summer with a 2.25 mountain bike tyre in the back of that. And so that was really rad. I think that was a bit big, but so that's what I'm riding. So like if you can, I've watched the Dylan Johnson video. You know, that's with wider gravel tyres. I think are definitely part of the future for certain segments of gravel riding. I think especially around here on the South Downs Way.
For wheels, how are we looking? Like, what changes in your design intent? Because you know, theoretically, you're moving at slower speeds. Not that you'd believe it with races like Unbound, but
so I think this is a really interesting one. So I mean, so above 14 miles an hour is always the number so it gets thrown around as that is a tipping point where the predominant force that you're fighting against is aerodynamics, and so we do take wheels to the wind tunnel, and gravel wheels. We sort of had recently. We've launched the 40 limits gravels. Actually, like I'm going next week to the tunnel, and we're going to go and play with a bunch of the new competitors that come out. Our 40 limits gravels, and I'm going to test everything from a 38mm tyre to a 2.2-inch tyre, and then we're sort of looking at ways to get a rolling resistance measure, so actually try and produce a reasonable amount of total drag figures at different range of speeds. And so that's where you're sort of looking, I think, that fundamentally for those ultra or very long gravel races, that comfort is a very important factor. And so I think we are seeing tyres go wider, that you sort of are having, so like a lot of our top pros they're basically putting the largest tyre that they can physically get in the bike.
100%.
And so for pros as well, obviously they're being given these bikes, and so there are some real boundaries that they have to deal with, because like if some of these bikes still do end in clear 45s, and so they're sort of cutting the knobbles off the side walls of a 50, and so it's just squeezing it in there, and they don't really mind if they lose a bit of paint and all this sort of stuff. So there's a lot going on there, and I think we will see in the next 2 years probably that change to be, I think, a gravel bike that comes out now, like you will see very few with clearance for less than a 50, and possibly a couple going wider, but you start to then run into like boost issues, and there's just like not enough space to package all of that. And so that's obviously, I think, something that more standards would be nice to avoid. But so I think, sorry, coming back to your original question, that I think aero and that performance aspect of gravel, like again, if people like, it is a very important feature, and if it allows you, if people like Unbound is predominantly a participation focused event. It's like there is a race aspect to it, but fundamentally 98% of the people doing that bike ride are just there like to have fun in maybe type 2 kind, but yeah, so I think providing wheels that get them from start to finish line as quickly as possible and that definitely comfortably is an aspect of doing that quickly.
And Hunt's all engineered around tubeless technology, isn't it? All your wheels, am I right in saying all your wheels are tubeless?
Yeah, apart from a couple of very niche, we've got some hill climb and some cyclocross tubs still.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be interesting. Yeah, I think we do believe tubeless is definitely like I think especially in Britain, it's a good option for many riders. It's not the perfect one for everyone. I think it'll be interesting that sort of we've done a lot of testing recently with like TPU tubes and stuff like that, and like Schwalbe have got very light tyres that are coming that are tube type only, and that I think that'll be an interesting step forward. That it might be like some segmentation there, but I think currently where the high performance is, like tubeless is the best current answer. Yeah.
And through your platform, Jake, through Bikebook, have you seen much in the way of things like uptake in tubeless? So lots of bookings for tubeless, lots of people requesting it, searching it.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably the main wheel kind of keyword that comes through, definitely. I think it can be daunting for some people who don't really know what it means. So yeah, obviously having good advice from someone that you can trust is really helpful. And yeah, agreed, it's definitely the best solution at the moment.
So Paddy, you're an engineer.
Yep.
We can talk about materials.
Okay.
So some of Hunt's wheels are still aluminium.
Yep.
And some are a large proportion now are carbon.
It's about 50-50.
It's about 50-50.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're designing with these materials, other than cost and associated machining costs and labour costs with layout and that sort of thing, what considerations do you take in for each performance value?
So I mean, there's fundamentally it's quite a different proposition designing with each, because like obviously carbon fibre, as we all know, is light, strong, stiff, brittle, and there is much more that there's a couple of rims that we use a automated layout process, but predominantly it's hand laid up, so you have a lot more control of the fibre placement and the orientation of the fibres, and so fundamentally it means that you can get a product that is either stronger for the same weight or lighter for the same form factor using carbon fibre. But then on the converse side, the alloy, like you can extrusions, you can put internal bracing in extrusions, and you sort of have for those who don't know, you fundamentally an alloy rim is made by, you get a die and you basically cut out, very simplified, but you cut out the shape of the rim that you want to like make, and it gets extruded through like toothpaste, and it comes out in a straight rim section.
It's like toothpaste with a template on the end.
Yeah, exactly, which is then cut and rolled into the shape you want it, and so you have like enormous control over those geometrical like shapes, and it's much more repeatable, and so it's actually, we've had like real success in sort of using like FEA to like model a lot of the properties of the aluminium rim profiles, and then that has allowed us to make much better rims. So fundamentally the cost of a aluminium rim is very high to change geometry, and like, because that's the only tool you have to change the strength of the rim. Whereas carbon, actually you can arrive on the shape for the aerodynamic properties of the shape, but then you can tinker with the layup, and you can put reinforcement in certain areas. You can put a co-molded section in the hook, so you make sure you have a really high fibre ratio in there, and you can do all of these things, and you can tweak and play and change layups at like the cost of the raw materials effectively. And so you've got to be much more, when you go and cut metal, you've got to be very sure of you're happy with the shape in both cases, but you've got to be sure of the aero and the impact performance of the alloy before you go to metal, whereas actually you just need to beat it for carbon. It's just the aero shape, and then you can sort of actually do a lot later.
You mentioned FEA, so for those listening that don't know what FEA is, finite element analysis. It's essentially stress analysis and all the individual tiny parts, make it into like a big mesh in 3 dimensions.
Yes.
And you apply stress to each of those dimensions and it does a computer calculation. So some stuff you want to do outside of it. We had a lecturer that was very keen on Excel spreadsheets and showing him a graph rather than showing him some FEA data.
Yeah.
But how much of the stuff are you doing, making test parts or test sections and testing, how much are you getting to play with, how much are you doing in computer simulation for composites?
So, for the aluminium sections, we basically go directly these are both mountain bike products, the ones we've developed in this way. We've gone directly from the computer modelling to like final samples.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of we've then impact tested and done like all of the ISO testing on, and then they are what have one is on the market and one is coming soon. Whereas on the performance road side, we tend to the wheels again. There's a mixture depending on the level. So our aerodynamicist, which is our mid range, are the wheels I rode here today, and so they came directly from my computer. So me and my fiance went for 2 weeks, a month in Lanzarote, and I designed them out there on CFD, and then finished the drawings and sent them off. I'd say, which is like a really quite bizarre thing to experience, having those wheels sort of turn up in real life, having designed them like entirely virtually outside of the office space, and watching them come to life has been quite special. But on our top end stuff, we take we 3D print plastic prototypes, and we then take them to the wind tunnel and test them, and so we get very good correlation between our plastic prototypes and final samples, and so it's using the right tool for the job, because CFD is incredibly good for very easy to change the shape of the rim, and we have like scanned in tyre profiles that we make internally, but also we work very closely with Schwalbe, who share some of that data with us. And so it's very easy to make alterations to the geometry of the rim, but actually swapping tyre profiles quickly and easily is really difficult to do, and then you've got to revalidate the model, sort out your the whole mesh again, and so do the final tests with different tyre sizes, different tyre brands on the rim is much easier to do with a full plastic model. And so we pick the right tool for the job to make sure that you are efficient with your resources and get the best data you can out of each tool.
So we're talking a little bit about rim profiles. Let's talk about spokes.
Okay.
Not going to talk about what spokes you use or anything like that. Okay. But I am curious from a performance perspective. You're making performance wheels. Increasingly, we talked about Unbound, but that's one day really. Yeah. But we're also seeing things like RAM, Race Across America. Yeah. And people using performance products or things orientated as performance products with bike packing gear. Or even, what's the one in Spain? Badlands.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, so, one of our riders, the pairs, Danny, won on our wheels. And so she chose the steel spoke for that one. But we do now make a carbon spoke version of the 40 Limitless. And that's what we'll be recommending to our riders at Unbound this year. I mean, fundamentally, these things are becoming more and more competitive, right? And so you will see more and more high performance products that is a little bit sometimes, in some cases, more finicky, in some cases a little bit riskier, but people will choose to run it because you need to get a bit lucky to win these races, right? And so it's one of those, it's so that you need to give yourself every advantage. I actually think carbon split probably is a bad example for that we've had top 10s at XC cross country World Cups on those carbon spoke wheels, that they are actually if you hit it, it will break.
Hi folks, Josh from the future here. The audio recorder died at this point, so we had to plug it in. So brief interlude and we'll be right back. stuff. Well, at least we had a nice chat.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't know where should we go.
We were talking about spokes. You were telling us about steel spoke joists, unbound.
Yeah. So it's one of the. It's a funny one. So I think that fundamentally riders will accept slightly more fragile product that is adding more performance. That fundamentally that is the trade-off that you're always making, and it's a sliding scale, right? That we could be making everyone ride road races on 2 kilo enduro wheels because like they are stronger, but you choose to have a lighter weight product that is like more fragile but more appropriate to the use case. And so for these super competitive races, I think there is a place for carbon spokes and put sort of lighter weight product in them that is, especially with tyres getting wider, I think you will see you're adding weight there, but you're also adding dampening properties, and so you can start to reduce the impact of the rim with like a reference tyre. So we always impact our gravel stuff with a 35mm tyre at the moment, which is something we're talking about, but that has been the worst case scenario for gravel tyres, and so that's the one we test with predominantly, and then so we test blow off at both extremes. But if people are going to be running 2.2-inch mountain bike tyres on the same course that you could get round on a 40, you can actually then start to like take a lot of the weight out of the rim because there's more volume there's more protection, and so you start to be like sort of starting to tailor slightly more for the use case, and I mean carbon spokes I think is a really good that is the way that I think performance product is going to go. That fundamentally it is a very good use case for carbon fibre, that all of the loading is happening in the same direction as the fibres, and so it means that until you stick something in them, basically like all of the loading is in plane, and so that means that they're roughly 30% stiffer than a steel spoke, and they are, depending on the one you use, like about a third of the weight. And so you need to build a slightly bit more weight into the hub shell because it's got a slightly bigger end to it, but it means you can use less spokes. And so you are looking at saving sort of 100 grams of wheel set, which is, again, I mean, you're talking 10%. They're talking like 7.5, 10%. So significant differences in that. Yeah, and so I think definitely worthwhile sort of starting to chase all of these little bits down and get the weight.
For all of these ultra races that are coming out, so it seems to be, it seems to have been popularised with the advent of vlogging and YouTube. You used to race with Chris Hall, didn't you? Or you were same team, and he's doing all sorts of stuff like Badlands, and you take all your stuff with you. Do the wheels that you're providing have a place in multi-day races where maybe you do need to change a spoke?
So again, for those races, the ultra races, so when we're talking like beyond Unbound, for Unbound XL and up, like we had a rider who came second on that last year on a set of our 40 CGR dynamos. That value proposition changes slightly. That it's fundamentally that if you're going to race Silk Road mountain race or something like that, like it's almost an inevitability that something on your bike will break, and so actually, for those wheels, we do still offer like a J-bend version of our like high-end gravel wheels because fundamentally, like you can cut and get something that will fit for those anywhere in the world, and that is, especially when you're sending riders to remote places, that they have to have like assurances that they'll be able to like fit and replace stuff. It is something that we do consider that on a lot of our new adventure product, we're looking to normalize spares as much as we can, so the point where you can take sort of 1 or 2 spokes and that will do, like that could replace all of, like, rather than having 4 separate spoke lengths, that if you can get it to a point where you have 1 spoke length across a wheel set and these sort of things on those products, is where actually they would probably accept 10 grams out of the wheel set, because then you don't need to spend you don't need to carry an extra 2 spokes, right? Instead of like starting to like slim down the packs and thinking about it in like, again, like it really is like looking at a systems engineering way, sort of what is the best product for that use case once you've taken all the factors into consideration.
So you've touched on use case. What about servicing? Are we moving towards a world where wheels are easy to service? You know, you've got sealed bearings where you just knock them out, press, and you set in. But then you've got things like internal. I mean, Campag have been doing this for ages. You drop the nipple into the rim, use a magnet to get it round, you pull it out, and then you true it.
Yeah.
And you touched on carbon spokes. So are we moving to a world that's like almost converging away? In one aspect, it's getting easier to service wheels, and in another, it's getting harder again.
Yeah, so I think there's probably, again, like I think there's going to be more segmentation of this. I think that the high-end product, that there is an acceptance that there is with, like, if you have like a high-end supercar, like they are more difficult to look after, right? And there is an acceptance of this sort of that for our entry-level product, sort of we use external brass nipples, right? And so they're easy to true. I don't think we would ever go down. The sealed rim bed is something that Campy has patented. Which is a whole other ball game. I think the method of putting spokes in. There's like multiple trade-offs, sort of, right? Like MV use internal brass nipples rather than sort of external alloy nipples, and so it's again not trueable at the roadside, which for some use cases, like if you're doing a road race, that is the focus of your product, is probably an acceptable trade-off, right? So you're like, if you have to true a wheel in a road race, like your road race is over, like fundamentally, and so having to take the rim tape off to true it is probably not a massive difficulty. But if you're doing an ultra race or like a sportif or something like this, like it's realistically you might have to true your wheel mid-race and your race is not over, because if that is easy, it might only take you 10 minutes. Yeah. If you've got to take the rim tape off, reseat a tyre, like that might be a day ender, right? And so you're always trying to weigh up these sort of cost benefits of each decision.
And Jack, you've been talking to a lot of bike shops, obviously catering to the bike shop. Have you had any discussions with them about the complexity of wheels or service products? Some brands will put labelling on certain shops to say they are certified to repair this. You'll get Shimano service centres, Campagnolo Pro shops. I'm not sure about SRAM and what they've got, but they've certainly got SRAM University. Are mechanics comfortable servicing these things if maybe they don't have access to the official training?
I think not everyone is comfortable with it, and I think, like, going back to our other conversation as well, where there is specialists who will do it, like whether that's the people that Hunt work with directly to kind of train them up and how to do it, or all the other suppliers. We have quite a few like specific wheel building only mechanics that use our software as well and customize it to suit that, because I think it can be a whole different ball game, and there's a lot of complexities, and if they've not been doing it very long, or they haven't done all the specific courses, they might not have the skills to do the really high-end stuff. And then in that case, it's better to outsource it somewhere else where someone can do it and they can just do the rest that they're comfortable with. But I think they're pretty open and pretty aware of what where their capabilities lie. And, they usually have different specialities in different areas, I would say.
Okay. Paddy, race teams, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you've had the opportunity, I think, the year before we graduated, something like that, you were part of the Hunt race team. Yeah. And not only have you designed the wheels, but you've been, as the engineer, but you've also been one of the people extensively testing them. How's that been? How have you found that you've been on all sides? You've been the end user of your own designed product.
Yeah, no, it's quite a surreal one, actually, to get the first ones through that I had like real input into, if that makes sense. That I'd seen it from the other end, where I'd been the donkey putting the miles on the product to test that it was okay. But then it's really satisfying part of the process, basically. Like that's fundamentally, like, I got into this because I really like bikes, like I really like riding bikes. I'm so a bit totally obsessed might be the correct phrase, but that's been it's been really cool to see, and I think it's something that I try and bring to the way I design, right? Like it definitely is. I do keep, there's a bit of a fight, and sort of I want to design exactly the wheels I want to ride, and sometimes that's not always the end use case that I'm a big proponent of. That, like I would choose the aerodynamics over the weight almost every time. But as a sort of 80 kilo like ruler, that is like how I win races, right? And so there's always a bit of a like a give and a take there. But I think it's it's interesting to see the full cycle, and I definitely think it makes me better at my job, right? Like I think that definitely that insight of I sort of inherently get what I'm looking for, and sort of having that feedback and being able to put it directly into my design process, and think like it means that I can do more. And as we've recently invested in some aero sensors, and which is another really exciting thing. And again, it's sort of where out testing on my wheels, and we're going to go and sort of, because I spend so long riding my bike, I'm going to go and capture some of the data for the wind conditions I'm seeing. And so when I do see that, like, okay, for me, when I do start to see some instability in this profile, like on this wheel profile, like what are the conditions looking like when I've started to see that? What are the yaw angles you're seeing? What are the wind speeds? And all of this sort of stuff, starting to like really try and put data to like rider experience. And so again, for like a small team, like we don't have dedicated test riders, and so being able to do a bit of both and mix and match has been, I think, quite valuable.
And you have been in the World Tour, like as Hunt.
Yes,
you've been in the World Tour.
Yeah.
So
I have most certainly not been bang average cat too, but
so you're dealing with a lot of people that are very high level cyclists. They're very in tune with how they like to ride, where they like to ride. How do you translate what does their feedback come back in the form of? Like what is the language they speak?
So I mean, it's really interesting. I think the European sort of mindset, there's like the European pro team mindset is like it is often quite archaic. Like it can be quite slow moving, and it's quite difficult to do. And like it just depends. You need, for us, it was an absolute godsend to have Victor Campenaerts on the team. That he was an incredibly technically forward-minded rider. That he at Lotto was basically their performance director as well as bike rider. That he really pushed on their technology, and sort of having a champion for wider tyres and tubeless in the team is very, very important. And then and fundamentally, like all someone winning on your product says is it was good enough. It doesn't say anything really about the like ultimate performance of it. Is, well, it was good enough that they managed to do it on that day. And so like Simon Clark was, and I wasn't directly involved in this, but sort of a lot of the feedback we got from him is that he wasn't too fussed about wider tyres, didn't really want and so he rode a set of our like small entry light 50 cans, and so it's a like straight pull, bladed spoke, but fundamentally like at that point was an open mould rim profile, and he would put a 28mm tyre on it, and he would put 8 bars in it, and there was no changing that. That was just what was going to happen. And like fundamentally, he has the Strava record down the Poggio that he set in like Milan-San Remo. So fundamentally, like you are there in a support function when you're running those teams. You need to provide the product that works for the riders, and like we have our data, we have our philosophy for wheel design and like wheel system and tire interface, and what will be the theoretical optimum, but fundamentally the optimum is what makes the rider feel most confident and what they feel fastest on. And so like at every level, that is the most important thing. Is like over a long time you can build relationships and you can start to move them in that direction. But fundamentally it's all just about supporting the riders.
So you're a guy that rides in all conditions, more or less. More or less. It's what is it today? It's drizzle to grey.
Grey but dry. Grey but dry. I was feeling very lucky today.
So, working in aerospace, we have big tanks and pressure chambers and altitude chambers, and we do all sorts of hydraulic tests and all this sort of, so stuff doesn't fail. So if you're with a bike wheel, you're out, and particularly around Brighton. I remember working in the bike shops, and you get bikes covered in white dust from the underpass, or the underway out towards Eastbourne, where bikes were just covered in crap. And how do you test for that? How do you account for that in your design process? How do you make sure that your wheels will stand up against dust and grit and grime? Because people will ride the wheels into the ground, won't they?
Yeah, well, and it's like something that we have really started to see with the advent of disc brakes, that people do just ride race bikes year round now, right? Like they ride their race wheels in the winter, and fundamental like alloy nipples, like this winter's been especially bad for it. Like, we haven't seen a massive spike yet, but I can imagine from sort of, I've had lots of friends crash on the roads because they've been salted, and there's the greasiness until it rains, and that salt is just sticking around, and I've noticed it cleaning my bike, cleaning maintenance, that I've had to, like, there is just a lot of salty gunk around. And so fundamentally, like, we do some salt and corrosion testing sort of on the spokes, and the spoke and nipple interfaces, basically that's the key bit. The rest is anodized aluminium or carbon fiber. And so we have test standards, and we have like what we expect to happen there. And then fundamentally, we just have lots of test riders out there. And it's one of those where it's a difficult. You will, like, an alloy nipple will eventually corrode if subjected to the elements for long enough. And so sadly, it's about it's a 50 gram weight penalty to move to brass for like for like. And so it's having that conversation about, I think it's sort of where we're moving. We are going to produce a 4-season carbon wheel, especially for the US market. That's a much larger chunk of the like market share for us over there. And so providing a brass nippled winter wheel that is carbon fiber, basically, so it rides like your race wheels. It's a little bit heavier, but you get all the durability of our 4-season range. Is definitely something that we are like looking into and testing, because the use cases are like ever changing. And so again, it's like just trying to find the right product for the right use case.
As you start to penetrate more markets, I mean, globally.
Yeah.
So, you'll have conditions in Australia, you'll have conditions in Canada, you'll have conditions in Finland.
Yeah.
Just trying to pick places that are quite extreme. Yeah. So you're going to have a real mixture of just like regular race bikes. You know, if you went down to Melbourne, it's all crit bikes and road bikes, and there's a big road cycling scene down there. You go out to Colorado, and there's a real mix. And in Finland, it's all fat bikes. It's probably not, but you get a lot of different extremes in weather and different extremes in bikes. So with different markets, do you have to reconsider products? With different technologies coming out, like electric bikes, do you have to reconsider what you're putting out and what you're rating things for?
So yes, I mean, e-bikes that's a whole other kettle of fish. But so it is something we do, that we have. Again, it's our key markets, right? And so fundamentally, the majority of we have a warehouse in the UK, we have a warehouse in Boulder, and we have a warehouse in Germany. And so there's not massive differences in sort of both Northern European countries. There's some differences about like what tyre sizes people run. So I think, like, if you're going to stereotype, but at these sort of levels you sort of do that, like Southern Europe, their like roads are better. They are tending to run slightly more dated internal rim widths, so like they're narrower and narrower tyres, because you just don't need 32s on Spanish roads, I guess, is the answer. Whereas in Boulder, they're all riding their road bikes with 35s because they've got these amazing gravel roads they can ride. And so there's in our key markets, having product testers on location and sort of bringing our athletes into that development cycle is really important. But and again, I think the really tough ones are, you didn't mention, but the like tropical and sort of Central Asian climates are like, they can be very harsh, very humid, very wet at times of year. Like they really we have less data, 'cause it's just less riders. And so I think as brands grow, like, market specificity is something that will definitely I think be worth considering moving forward. It's, again, luckily it's a bit out of my remit. I worked my brief and I produced the wheel that I'm asked to produce, but I think it's interesting to think about.
We've seen changes in rim widths with changes in preference and tyre sizes, and a lot of this has been around width. And then, I don't know, 10 years ago we saw a change from, obviously in mountain bike world we went from 26 inch to 27.5 inch. people are like, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
And now it's one of the most populous,
Yeah.
and now everything's 29. My
Yeah.
full suspension trail bike is 29 inch.
Yeah.
So, do you think, the road scene's typically been quite slow to adopt things, and the road frames are they're normally governed by the UCI rules, which say your wheel must be this size, your tire cannot be greater than this size.
Yeah.
With gravel bikes, there's obviously there's UCI races, but you got cross, monster cross, gravel, all sorts of stuff coming through.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to see a new rim size?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's 750D or whatever has been floating around recently, hasn't it?
How wide is that? 750.
No, rim size. So it's the diameter. Like off the top of my head, yeah, I think it is. So a 700C bead seat diameter is 622, and I think it's about 660 for a 750D. Off the top of my head, don't quote. Yeah, and so it's a similar, and then a 650B is 584. And so it's a similar sort of jump from 650B to 750 to 700 to 750D. It's again, I think more standards I don't think is probably good for the consumer in the end. I think that currently there is a lot of choice and a lot of differentiation on the market, and I think it doesn't necessarily provide the benefit that outweighs the cost of the difficulty. I think we are seeing a reduction in the amount of 650B gravel product that we sell. That it's we're down into like the handfuls of it. We still there's people who want it, who we still make it for, but it's I think it's something that we will see die out in the next couple of years. It's a difficult one. I think there is definitely a space for that. I would love to see the all bodies on bikes movement. I think it's really cool, and I think having wheels that are appropriately sized for your frame. If you are a very tall person, a 700C wheel is not probably appropriate, and if you are a very small person, a 700C wheel is probably not appropriate. And having that flexibility that your whole bike scales without this quite major component staying the same size is it's probably there is probably some utility in that, right? And a lot of it can be around with design of frames and geometry, but fundamentally it's if you're on a 47 centimeter frame and you've got a 700C wheel in it, that's going to handle more slowly because it's just a larger proportion of your bicycle is wheel basically. And it's and so I've talked around it a lot, but fundamentally as a 6 foot tall dude, I kind of hope that we don't have that complexity, but I can see that maybe that is something that moving forward, if the market gets big enough.
Do you think maybe for height specific, so if you're a junior and you're on a 24 inch wheel, that you got more tyre choice, more wheel choice? Because some of the juniors you see turning up to races these days are on spaceships. They turn up with full SRAM red, and
I mean, don't get me started on that. I think
that's a topic for another day.
Junior racing should it should be rim brake CAD 10s with 10 speed. That's all you're allowed. I think. I think that would be an absolute for parents everywhere. I think
and
that would
still blast the cat full field.
Yeah. Oh, of course, obviously, because we all know the real issue is that you don't train enough. But no, I think that's a whole nother kettle of fish. But I think, for people who are outside of who don't ride a 51 to a 60 centimeter frame, I think there's probably some real utility in different wheel sizes.
So we're going to close up a little bit. Because we've gone through a lot of technical stuff. And there's probably loads more to unpack. But we'll finish with a few just lighter questions. If you could ride one set of wheels for the rest of your life, designed by you or not?
Okay. Yeah.
Definitely designed by you, sure.
It'd be rude not to. It's
and you can answer with this custom set of wheels that I would design that I haven't designed yet but would want to design.
One set of wheels for the rest of my life. So that's a difficult question. So the probably is a discontinued set of wheels that it would be a toss-up between our 42 limitless gravels, which I think which we designed. They were the first aero gravel wheel on the market, and we really designed that around a 35 to 40 mil tyre, and it's not where gravel is going, and so, but they were a set of wheels that were amazing to ride with a 32 mil width tyre, and they were amazing to ride with a 45 mil tyre. And so we have gone down the route of more specificity since then. If I was going to be locked in, they're the ones I would choose because they do both so well. But actually, yeah, and the more I think about it, I would probably actually go for a set of our sub 50s. They're the top end race road wheel, so there's what I raced all year this year, but they're a 23 mil internal, and yeah, again, I've ridden them on some silly things, and so that probably my final answer. Yeah, I think those would be the ones.
Another silly question.
Yeah.
What's the strangest request you've had from a pro cyclist or development rider?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't. I've dealt with some of the mountain bike, the enduro guys, who were like really trying to reduce the rolling resistance on their bike, on their wheels, and so we were like fully ceramic them, fully like ripped all the seals out, and you're just going like, do you realise you're running like the Conti double down casings here? Like we've maybe saved you a watt, and like you've really sacrificed the reliability of this product by to the point where it needs a lot of servicing to keep going. Yeah, and you're going to run the heaviest tyre casing. Like I feel that's probably the one that was the most difficult. I don't tend to do the athlete management side, so. But that's the one I was involved in. That, like, and we got to a really good solution in the end. We managed to get to a point where I think they felt like they had a real performance benefit from our product, and that's again what we come back to. You're trying to support your riders, and so yeah.
So we graduated on the same day.
We did.
Yeah, queued up, put our hats on, graduated. And funnily enough, we both went back into the bike industry as soon as we graduated because, obviously you stayed in it and I've sort of jumped out and jumped back in. If you weren't in bike wheels, if you weren't in like bike engineering, what do you think you'd done?
I think it's an interesting one. I do find it interesting that fundamentally that the engineering process is. Like, I love the fact it is the bike wheels that I design, but it actually for my day to day, it doesn't really matter. Like I get to ride home on wheels that I designed, which is really cool. But actually, I think I just love the engineering process, and I really enjoy the fact that it's a small team and that I get to have total visibility over my project, if that makes sense. Like I see it from start to finish, and I think that's. What I would look for is a engineering firm where it is small enough that you are seeing projects through, be that sort of high performance boats or sort of small like racing car stuff. It's all like that small team vibe. It's like what kept me going through university was listening to the like Gordon Murray interviews and stuff, and listening to like them designing like the Brabham cars in like the 80s and stuff, and just like these small teams like just doing like sort of getting by. I think that's by far the most gratifying part of my job, and that's the bit that I look for. And there's some so I think that'd be the answer. Not sure where I'd go, but like try to keep the vibe and day to day similar.
Yeah. Don't go corporate. Can vouch. So you've been all sorts of places with your bike. Yeah. Spain, Ireland, France, Belgium. Yeah. You raced in a few different places as well. Yeah. What's your dream ride? Where have you not been that you want to go and that you go to bed thinking about? You're like, just that one place.
That one place. It's just honestly, just that one ride that would complete me. I don't. So I mean, Calpe is an absolute playground. I've never been to Girona, and that is, I think, that'd be a cool place to go. But yeah, I mean, actually, the most beautiful place I've ridden by far is Kielder Forest. The gravel up there, just like pristine gravel tracks. We saw absolutely no one, and I think that's the stuff that is like, yeah, that's really special, right? That's like really different. Like it's sort of, you can see the sort of the ospreys flying about and like all of this. Like it is really, like it's incredible. I think that's sort of more wildernessy, but a beautiful surface. Like is, I would say is the best place I've ever ridden. And so yeah, more of that sort of stuff. I think that where the sort of Raiders gravel's held sort of up in the Scottish borders, there's a lot more of that. And so I think, excited to race some of those gravel races this year. That's nice. What the real targets are. Yeah.
You got a dream ride, Jake?
Probably Girona, to be fair.
Yeah.
Everyone I ever meet says I should go there and ride gravel. So one day I'm going to have to fulfill that dream.
Yeah, exactly.
It does seem like the place.
Take the podcast on tour, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
get some good guests out there, to be fair.
Yeah, we'll get some a few more bike shops in the UK, and then we'll go and hit up some bike shops in Girona.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. You guys coming?
If we're invited, yeah.
Supporting.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to buy some more microphones. Like to close, like cycling in the UK is going up and down, up and down, up and down. And I think we touched on this a little bit in the last episode, but like culture-wise, perception-wise, from cycling culture in the UK, if you could change something about the cycling culture that you think would get more bums on saddles, more people on bikes, and you could change it, click your fingers, you could change it tomorrow.
Yeah.
What would you change?
I think it's a big education aspect. Like it's one of those that it's very easy for it to be very confrontational between cars, and that we're really annoying, and that we don't use cycle lanes. And I would love for it to be like part of your driving test or something. You've got to cycle down a busy road, or and you've got to do it every 10 years, and just understand I hold the road because I'm just trying to look after myself, and that. If they've built a beautiful cycle path around here from Lewis to Eastbourne, and that genuinely is like German quality, like proper cycle route, and that totally gets you off the roads. And so it's an education infrastructure piece, but just anything that takes the heat out of that cyclists versus motorists, it's stupid culture war bullshit.
Definitely. I think new cyclists it's their biggest worry, isn't it? The safety aspect of it. You get about and get hit off, and if you're sensible about it, obviously it's always a risk, but you could reduce that risk as much as possible, can't you? So definitely educational. But
so that's yours as well, Jacob.
Yeah. But infrastructure as well, as you say, that cycle path is amazing. Yeah. But there is some roads around where you're riding obviously to work, which are semi-sketchy at best. Yeah,
the one I ride in every morning, it's sort of luckily I've got the downzinc there, so in the summer I can gravel quite comfortably to work, but and I'm very fortunate to have that option, and that it's a rideable distance, and that I'm fit enough and healthy enough to do that, and I have a setup at work that means I can get kitted up and run reflective and blind them with bright red lights, I think but fundamentally it's just you've got to share the road and just show a bit more respect for each other, I think. And that's
And from the motorist perspective, they're really not losing too much time if they've got to go around you. So probably not going to be late for anything.
We'll all be driving 20 mile an hour in town soon enough.
Yeah, exactly. So bikes will be the quickest way anyway. I mean, to be fair, cycling into Brighton is usually as quick as driving anyway.
No, exactly.
When we used to do loops round to Stan's, used to go over the deep beacon down towards Stan's bike shop. This is a cafe that used to be in Partridge Green, where Hunt's now based. Yeah. You used to come back along the seafront past Shoreham, and you just fly. Everyone's stuck in traffic, and you're just soaring along.
Unbelievable.
And they just they jump you. They get stuck at the next set of lights. You jump them. They jump you, and it's sort of a needless we don't need to make that pass. It's just and just actually trying to get that into people's minds that it's that everyone's just trying to get to their destination safely, and that it's Yeah, and I really that's one. I basically, if I could just get Jeremy Clarkson to stop talking about bikes ever, I think would probably be the thing I'd snap my fingers. That it's just it's needless riling people up, and it's
Well, he's a tractor driver now.
well exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah. You'll need much more time behind one of them.
Yep.
And I think there's some give and take, right? You do see cyclists who you would like sharing the road. It is a two-way thing, and that you see people on busy roads with groups that are like properly spread out in a long line, and it's and some of that education. I think it's like needs to be both ways, and it's it's not just like we're not cyclists are not perfect. But I think it's
no, but we can do more. We can do more as individuals. Encourage them from a club level. A lot of clubs will have starter rides where they teach you the hand signals, teach you how to ride in a group. The Surrey League, they used to do like a mock-up race. So you weren't actually racing, you wouldn't get any points, but they said if you want to be part of the league, you need to come to this session. And they teach you the rules of the road and that sort of thing. I was fortunate I could do bikeability at school. I've been riding on the road since I was 9 or 10. Yeah. No one has that privilege anymore. Well, few people have that privilege anymore. No,
exactly. I think that's a big one. But it's just busy. It's just like real, and like it's the infrastructure piece. It's sort of that like one more lane won't fix the traffic issues, right? Like it's sort of start to see more pedestrianised and cyclable cities, and like Brighton is a difficult one for that, right? It's an incredibly hilly place that if you unless you're on an e-bike, I think for most people it's quite a difficult place for like most people to get around, and so it's it's not an easy solution, and it's always been my dream that I've always said that if I was like Brighton Mayor, like the whole seafront prom here, just like pedestrianised immediately, like street food stands all the way along it, like double lane cycle path. Like I just see absolutely no utility in any of the freight traffic being allowed to like come in from the port in Shoreham and drive to like Seaford through this massive
100%. It could be going back up to the motorway.
There's a ring. There's a road round
there for a reason.
Exactly. But that's my.
They just like the sea views.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And everyone likes to get a bit of those knocks and socks in their lungs while they're on the beach. It's all good.
Oh, lovely. The water is brown and the air is full of pollutants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can't breathe or swim, so you might not just enjoy the sun, hey?
Yeah, that's why you get the lanes so packed. The air is actually cleaner there.
Exactly.
Right, thank you, Paddy. And thank you, Jake. And thank you to everyone watching and listening. My sincere hope is this has been insightful and educational. And you've learnt a little bit about wheels and hunt.
I learned a lot, to be fair. So.
Yeah, I did. It was interesting. You can learn more about Hunt Bike Wheels by visiting their website.
I think, Hunt Bike Wheels, we've got 3 or 4 depending on your location. So,
okay.
Huntbikewheels.com.
Just Google it.
Yeah, exactly. Just Google it.
But if you're looking for your local bike mechanic, go through Bikebook.
.co.uk, not .com.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah.
Right. Lovely stuff.
Right. Awesome.
Great.
Thanks very much.
Done.
Thanks, Josh.
Awesome. The surprise that you learned something, Joshua, honestly.
I learned that you were engaged.
Yeah, I know, right? It was fun.
Upgrade your ride with Procycle Mobile. We're now an official Hunt Wheels dealer. For a limited time, get this exclusive bundle. Buy a pair of Hunt Wheels, a pair of Pirelli tyres, and get the tubeless setup with Silka sealant, fitting and coolant included, all at a special package price. Order now via email info@procyclemobile.com.